Hi, it's Full Day. It's GreatDad.com here with my weekly podcast with dads of kids and all kinds of different issues. We talk a lot about coaching, but we also talk about a lot of other issues where men are stepping up. Men have advice. They're experts in a lot of fields. And this is a really interesting topic today about generational wealth, a little bit about generational poverty, but I'm really excited to talk to Jasper Smith today, who's I don't know how you style yourself as a financial advisor or a wealth specialist. How do you explain yourself?
I sometimes say financial planner. I say financial coach, consultant. I even use financial concierge because it rolls off the tongue. I know a little bit about the money business, the
Yeah,
money game. And so how people classify me, I'm depending on the title, sometimes scares people, but I like to
yeah,
say financial coach, right? I'm a financial coach. So financial planner is fine, but just know I'm the guy who knows a little bit about money.
yeah. And I love your approach because we got a chance to talk a little bit, and so we're not talking about. I think when a lot of people hear financial planner, they think, "Oh, I got to make $1 million. I got to have a ton of
Exactly.
cash."
Exactly.
But we're talking about really how even people of more modest means can can create some sort of buffer, some sort of nest egg, either pass on or to have for a rainy day fund if God forbid something happens to
Yes.
the breadwinners in the family.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. That is exactly the point. And that's why I'm very mindful of titles because I've heard that more than I care. Well, I can't afford you. You don't even know what I do, but you saw my title or you saw my title at a particular company. And so they just assume I'm not ready or I cannot afford you. But honestly, Paul, the first time you had a job, you probably should have had a financial plan.
Yeah. 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 And
It might have been simple. It might
just
have
to
been a
set this
simple
up
plan.
early on is you offer a half an hour session, which I assume is not a sales session. It's just a like
Oh,
helping people orient, helping solve them. It's a really generous thing to do. And I think I mean, we're going to get into why everybody should do that, but it's the buildwealthmovement.com, and we'll put that in the show notes. But we talked a little bit beforehand about how most
mhm.
people are not prepared for retirement. And that probably means they're not really prepared for a horrible eventuality. It's kind of 50% above the board, looking at all kinds of socioeconomic data. I mean, different groups. It's really right about 50% of people who are not at all prepared
Mhm.
for retirement.
Agreed.
That's
Yeah. And that statistic has not changed in a very long time. And that's what's scary.
yeah, yeah,
They do that study or something similar, and it's still the number one fear for retirees is running out of money.
yeah, yeah, yeah. You hear for like people retiring, they've got like $10,000, $20,000 in the bank, if that, and they're wondering like, is my Social Security going to cover it? And like, I'm here to tell you that 65 not going to, unless
Yeah.
you move to
And
some
Paul,
foreign country.
yeah, and Paul, like when I read those statistics and see these studies every year, I mean that's part of what like encourages me to keep trying to educate people about what is possible because talking to groups of people, they're coming from all walks of life.
Yeah,
And so I've learned how to I'm not going to assume you know what I know as a practitioner. I mean, I've been in the industry 16 years. So I do know more than the average person. Yes, I've lived through a couple downturns in the market and how that impacted my personal finances. But for somebody of your age, you've seen it a lot more. And so the question I ask people is, what did you do the last time something, and I would say something happened? And if you didn't take note of what this incident was and tried to learn from it, that may be one component or one reason why you're in a situation today is the world kept moving and then you kind of stayed stagnant. And so
you
I
think
know
of
it
like
sounds
events
crazy.
like the year 2000 or the year 2008 or those type of things where everybody thought everything was going to collapse and you might have lost your job, and yeah, but you got to learn from those experiences.
Even more recent. So the pandemic, let's just
Yeah.
say January 2020 to March 2020, awful. The stock market from March through the rest of 2020, boom.
Yeah. Yeah.
But if you watch the media, oh, we're trapped inside, it's bad. But business kept going and innovated. Some businesses didn't make it, others came into the marketplace. but the market did very well. And I talked to people about, hey, did you stay in the market? Oh, it was rough in January. I said February, March. I said, what happened from April to the rest of the year?
Yeah. Yeah.
Hockey stick type of performance. And again, you didn't have to be a genius to make money had you just stayed invested appropriately.
Yeah.
Probably would have made a few dollars.
Yeah. So when we talk about generational wealth, what does that actually mean? Because if you don't come from, I mean, I grew up with a single mom, and we didn't have a lot of money. We didn't save a lot. And I mean, we were just like trying to make it month to month. My mom was always afraid to even just open up the bills, even at 10 or 11, she was having me open the envelopes because she was just scared to look inside. So a lot of people don't even know what this concept is. And it's only been kind of, like I was saying, it's only been later in my life that I've realized that I have friends who coming up together. I thought we were all kind of like in the same financial means. And then suddenly I realized they've got this safety cushion of a whole bunch of family money. Like maybe their parents own a house and they're gonna pass away, or they're going to retirement or whatever. And they're gonna inherit a house. And suddenly, that's big money. But so how does that work? And how many people have kind of that kind of generational safety net?
There are quite a bit.
Yeah.
And really, when you were talking about this generational, and I even have it in my tagline of disrupting generational poverty.
Yeah.
Generational means you, your kids, kids, and you keep that's what generational means. So when you talk about wealth, it means, okay, Paul, you had it great. And so you set your kids up for greatness. So now let's say, for an example, you paid for college for yourself, but then you said, well, if I have a kid or kids, I'm going to set up college funds early on so then they won't have student loans. So then your kids go to college, don't have any debt, graduate, make money, can give back to charities and their college. And so now they're like, "Oh, if dad did this for me, now I have kids, then your kids will also set up college accounts
Yeah.
because they're going to say, I had such a great experience of enjoying college and not worried about financial aid in my books and all that. Your kids are going to rinse and repeat the process. So then your kids, your grandkids will also go to school and not have student loans and come out of college debt free. So then what happens to your grandkids? So Paul, your great grandkids will say, God, everybody went to school and just had fun.
Yeah.
So
I know if I want them to be that much.
So
I
in
get
their
your point.
mind,
Yeah.
in their mind, a student loan doesn't even show up on their radar because nobody in their family has ever talked about it.
Yeah. Well,
And Paul,
as opposed to even leaving your kids $100,000, even
Mhm.
paying for their education is this transfer of generational wealth. And
there you go.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's what, when people talk about generational wealth, it's a similar example to, there's something that your children will not have to worry about or pay for because it was already done, whether it's inheriting a property, inheriting a business, whether it's just getting a payout from a life insurance policy, a retirement account when somebody passes away. But again, it was you're given this head start. And so the problem is really the children or the next generation isn't educated on what they're about to receive. And so what you'll find is there are some children or who were born into a good situation and then they literally blow it
Yeah.
because mom and dad left no instructions or mom and dad didn't have the talk. So part of creating generational wealth is constantly having the conversation, for one, but then the second piece is reminding them. You got to tell them, again, you got to remind them. And then when you leave this earth, it's almost like this race you're running, right? So you're on the track, you're running you're running your leg of the relay race. And so when you leave, the goal is you hand off the baton perfectly, or as perfectly as you can. You didn't get it all right in your life, but you did something well enough to hand off that baton. So your child grabs the baton almost in perfect stride, and then they run their leg of the race. And this race that you're running is the race of life.
Yeah.
So how did your generation do as compared to your parents or your grandparents? And in generational wealth, every generation does a little bit better.
Hopefully. Yeah.
Right, right. Barring any,
Right. Right.
unforeseen circumstances, that's how it's built. That's how it's maintained. And then it becomes a part of the fabric of your family. So it's doable. It's possible
Well, let's
if you so choose to.
one of the elements that we often hear, I mean, we talked about this right before, is people who say, I'm not leaving a penny to my kids. I'm going to make sure they know that they don't have any leg to stand on, everything. But we were talking about quite often, that's not really, that's kind of a fake statement, because a lot of people who make that claim are people who have so much money that they're worried that their kids are going to just lie by the pool for the rest of their lives. And that's not the case for most of us. I mean, most of us are not going to even leave $50,000 to their kids.
Yeah.
And that can be the difference between, getting a good start and falling behind
Mhm.
right from the beginning. So can you just dispel that kind of idea of leaving them with nothing?
Yeah, yeah, and yeah, you're right. It is definitely hyperbole, right? I'm leaving them with
Yeah.
nothing, but you've probably left them with the knowledge
Well, you
and
said
or
that,
something.
hopefully.
Right. You've left them something of value that will allow them to not fall into that trap of you got something, then you lost it, or you felt like you had to work hard and we still gave you something as kind of a your commitment to us is to not mess this up. And so what a lot of parents do is they just have the conversation so frequently that again the kid begins to internalize that I need to be able to stand on my own 2 feet.
Yeah, yeah.
That's important. And so I'll use my example. My life is I grew up with a little bit of privilege, but I was the third child. So I've talked to my parents about what it was like when they had my sister very young and they didn't know what they were doing. And then they took a break. And then, 10 years later, they had my brother. And so they started doing things a little bit differently. And then 4 years later, I came out. And I've talked to my parents about where were you in life and how did you know to start to do these things? And here was the one word that both of my parents said. We expected to do better than what our parents did for
Mm.
us.
Yeah.
So there was no, you had to be the smartest, the wisest, had the most money. It was just, you have to have the expectation that we're going to
Yeah.
do a little bit better. But also they said we were intentional.
Love that word.
Yep. So if you are, I'll say that it doesn't matter your profession.
Yeah.
It just matters, are you expecting to do well? And if so, you will find the resources and the education to assist you. But then you do have to remain intentional. And I'll also throw in discipline because life is going to throw some stuff at you and you got to dodge and dip and you're going to get hit in the face. You're going to get knocked down. But it happens to everybody, Paul. Like nobody who is wealthy will tell you that they haven't taken a lot of L's in
Yeah.
their life. They have had some losses of sometimes grand, like large losses. But if you are still alive and breathing, and this is for the people who says, or the fathers you speak to who say, well, I just don't know if I have it. Well, if you don't believe you won't achieve, you got to believe that you can do better or do the best that you can. So give yourself a little bit of grace because all these people that we read about who have success and wealth and riches, they didn't figure it out overnight. It was a lifelong process.
Yeah.
For most of them. And they're still trying to learn more to do the best they can with the time they do have. Even though they're not always in this ideal situation, it's just being able to believe that you can get it done.
Yeah. Yeah, Jasper, I'm so glad you talked about this. I think a lot of people thinking like we're going to talk about money. They expect somebody who's going to be like hard nosed, which is going to be nothing.
Yeah.
Maybe we'll talk about some of those kind of tips too. But this whole idea that your legacy is, hopefully maybe there's a part that is a financial component, but you're also, this is something I'm like, this is my hobby horse is talking about the intentional father and doing these things from the beginning, setting out with values, like you talked about discipline and stick to it. But it's all these great values that are also part of your legacy, and being determined to pass that on and do better is just a really important message. The one thing I think I found to some extent with financial planners is you can meet two types. One is the kind who's going to talk about return and stocks and options. and they don't talk about the cut they get for some of those things. And then there's the best ones. It sounds like you're in this category of people who want to know, who are you? What do you want to do? Not only financially, the fact that you want to own a boat or have a house in the, the forest or whatever, but that you have certain dreams and aspirations that are more emotional or more values based at the same time. So they really want to know who that person really is and what they're trying to get to, rather than just how much cash they want.
Yeah, I'm glad you said that, Paul, because I actually do that in a lot of my introductory discovery meetings. I rarely start with, here's what I can do for you, because it's almost like you're so used to being sold just with social
Right.
media and the media and just your friends, and they were always pushing stuff at you. So this was about 8 or 9 years ago. I tried to like switch that because I was in that mode. I was a hardcore, like in your face, and it was like, yeah, people don't like you when you just
Right,
push
right,
it.
right.
And so I kind of had this shift where I said, okay, I'm going to continue to educate people and pull them. I'm not saying you got to agree with everything that I share or that I have on my website in terms of my articles and blogs. And even when I have sessions like this, you don't have to take my word for it. But if you talk to people who have some real wealth, you'll see that there's this common thread of one, they think differently than the average person. They are willing to ask for help.
Mhm.
That's a big one. So the
Yeah.
question you should ask, for a lot of men, because a lot of men are not my clients, Paul, because men don't like to ask for help. Men will mess it up 3 or 4 times before they ask for help.
Yeah.
I'm not that guy. I had enough of those experiences in my 20s, like early 20s, that by the time I got to my late 20s, I was like, why don't I just ask for help? Because somebody will help me. And so I see a lot of men where it's like that pride and ego will keep you in your situation. And so you will constantly be mad and negative towards the world if you just flip that around and became and I'm gonna say the word that most men don't like, you gotta become vulnerable.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean you're a softie.
Yeah.
It just means you are aware of your situation. And if you are willing to allow someone to help you,
Yeah.
you will save yourself a lot of time, money, and heartache. And so I try to do that in my discovery meetings where I start off asking what are you trying to get done and how can I help? And I'll let them talk. And then if I'll carve out like 2 minutes. Hey, look, I'm a financial planner. I do insurance, investments, retirement, blah, blah, blah. That's great. But if you have 1 or 2 things that we can work on and I can help, I would love if you would consider me as a part of your money team. And that's how I leave it. I do my follow-ups. I don't nag, but I think also there's a there's a part of this business that I have to do, and it's I've got to get you to take action because time is the factor that a lot of people don't realize where wealth takes time, like a long time. And especially if you're not in a career field where you're earning a higher income or you get big bonuses and things like that, or stock options, where if I'm just a teacher or a social worker, and I have quite a few of those clients, they have just those segments of my clients have become like savings ninjas, investing ninjas, real
Yeah.
estate
Yeah.
ninjas. Like we teach
Right.
them
Yeah.
just,
Yeah.
hey, look, do a couple of things very well and then go back to your life. And then when we do our check-ins, you will see what happens when you have the plan, you stick to it, and you have an expert helping to guide you through it. And so I think it's if we can get people to just say, hey, I need the help, man, we could do some incredible things.
Yeah. So we talked a little bit about also that, and maybe we'll get into like 4 or 5 things that you can specifically do. But we talked about the fact that some people are, they've got they're working 2 jobs. They've got
Yep.
McDonald's and something else, and they're barely making it at all with no money left at all for diapers and all the necessities, and all the way up to people who've got, they've got a cushion, and yeah, they didn't have to buy that second car or the house, the Tahoe or whatever. But even if you don't have any money, if you don't have any money, or you're kind of more in the middle class of people, many, many people in America just struggling to get by, what are those things that you can do today? I assume one of them is talk to somebody like you And you said you talk to anybody who's willing to, who wants to spend half an hour, you'll give them some part of
Yep.
advice. It might not be working with you, but it might be like, these are the 3 things you can do today. But what other things can would you do if you didn't have, you're
Yep.
struggling?
Here's the funny thing about the people who say I'm living check to check. It's only because you aren't aware of your spending
I love
habits.
that.
Here's I'll give you this one. This is one of the things I have people do. Take a look at your bank statements. So if you're using a debit card or credit card, look at the previous 3 months of your spending. And what you do is you get a highlighter, and I want you to print this out because I want you to have this tangible, not on the screen, like print it out and get a highlighter. And then you highlight everything that was not a necessity to live. So anybody who says, I don't have a lot of money, or I'm living check to check, or I might be underwater, I need you to prove it to yourself. Because you saying it, Paul, I'm not a believer until you show me. And then when people look, they're spending. I'm like, there goes $50, there goes 75. I told you about the donut thing this morning. So that was $20. I'm thinking like, I just spent something that wasn't a necessity, but I wanted those donuts.
Yeah.
So that would have been highlighted on I didn't need them. I wanted them. And so we got to stop saying that we can't do things until we've proven that we actually cannot do them.
Yeah. Yep.
It's just like in a fight. I think I can beat you up. Well, if I've never seen you fight and you don't hit me, I won't really know if you can knock me out. Now, if you knock me out, when I wake up, I'll say, yes, Paul, you could knock me out, and you've shown me that you can knock me out.
Yeah.
So with the money piece, I know the struggle feels a certain way, but we have and harbor those feelings simply because we're not looking at the numbers.
Yeah. Yep. Well, I think there's a component in there that I know from my personal experience is that there's that temptation is always lurking. Like, I had a crappy day, I owe myself a cocktail, or my life is really hard right now. I owe myself a new car, or whatever the thing is, and I have to have HBO because I need to be entertained at the end of my shift or whatever. But so how do you, I think there's a really key question is, how do you overcome those temptations to get just a little bit of extra joy out of life because of something that, takes money out of your savings plan? Or
Yeah. So here's another word: creativity. You got to get creative. When streaming became a thing, I didn't sign up for any of the streaming services, but all my friends did.
Yeah.
That's nothing new. You leverage your village and your community. And one of my good buddies, we're all in our late 30s now. We all have families. And so he is on a family cell phone plan with his mom, dad, sister, brother, cousin, aunt. They have a family cell phone plan. And so he said one of his uncles pays the phone bill out of his earnings. So everybody's phone, they all have unlimited data. A family member takes care of that bill. So then my buddy, his thing is when they go on vacations, he does like the travel arrangement. So he covers like, hey, here's the travel agent we're going to pay. So they all kind of divide and conquer different things that they all need. So if you have all the streaming services and subscriptions because you can afford them, Paul, and maybe I'm not in a financial position to be able to afford them, you can just give me access because we're family. And so it was, it's like carpooling. If all y'all work in the same building and you live on the same street, why are all 3 or 4 of y'all driving to work when you all have to be at the same company at 8 o'clock or 9? It just, think about this like individualism that we all think that because I'm an adult, I'm a man, I'm like, I have to do it all. I like not doing stuff. I like letting my village and my community know how they can support me. So it really is creativity. If you like going out and having a drink, well, is one of your good friends a bartender? Could you barter? Hey, look, if you don't have kids and I have kids and I got to cook dinner, how about you just come over? I'll give you a couple free hours of childcare. I'll feed them, but then you go do something for me in exchange. And so it's nothing new. Communities back in the day, and there's still something to do it today.
yeah,
Where's the community?
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Pay for everything if I can avoid it. But some people feel like I don't have to pay for all the things. If I can get what I need to live a robust life, then how can I do it for relatively little money or zero money?
Yeah. 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 I mean, like
It's possible.
creativity is like, I mean, I can think of a million things, especially if you live
Yep.
in a neighborhood where you've met your neighbors. I mean, share a lawnmower, share a car, share a half a cow or whatever, whatever it is. And to save some cash, I mean, it's a matter of priorities.
Paul. So my daughter's a little over 1 year old. We've never bought clothes for her. You know
Yeah,
why?
that's a perfect one, especially under one. I mean, the number of clothes that just get tossed because they grow out of them so fast.
We were gifted a lot of hand-me-downs, shoes, socks, shirts, pants. The shoes, we had 5 pair of shoes that my daughter couldn't even wear because by the time she was ready for shoes, had our that foot was already too big.
Yeah.
But Paul, my wife and I, my daughter's been alive a year and 2 months. We have spent $0 on
Yeah.
clothes. So for
Yeah.
all your fathers, again, all you do is say, this is economical.
Yeah. I think
That's different.
I think you need to flip the script because I think a lot of people have shame around taking hand-me-downs, like at every income level. It's like, why I
Yes.
don't
Yes.
need clothing, I need new for my kid. I got a special style, but I mean, I mean, they're face. I mean, nobody's even going to see them underneath that damn blanket. But I mean, I think that's a huge thing is getting over that shame of secondhand, whether it's clothing or toys or even, the shirt your friend doesn't want anymore. I mean,
Paul,
you can flip the script and be more like ecological, friendly to the planet, not as much waste, and thinking that you're doing something altruistic rather than
yes.
shameful.
And that's where it comes from. So like my wife and I are very mindful of the environment. And so we've done cloth diapers intentionally because again, we were gifted cloth diapers. Once
Yeah.
we told our community we're not doing Pampers unless we have to, like we have to do an overnight pamper.
Yeah, it's
But
great on the
before
plane.
that,
Yeah.
right, but before that, we have all cloth. So my daughter, again, if she was aware of like what was on her body, she would have known like, yo, I'm always in this nice, comfortable cloth,
Yeah.
and then I got this little loose pamper. It was just, it goes back to being intentional. My wife and I talked about, I'm not shameful to ask, and if it's any, you know, person who isn't a believer, I'm a financial planner who's really good with money and investing and all of that. And I still find ways to not spend my money, which is what wealthy people do. The
Yeah.
wealthiest person is the most fiercest negotiator. If you go to buy a new car, their credit is good, they got the money, but they will still haggle
Yeah.
until the ends of the earth to get a good deal on that car. The other person is just happy to buy the car and their credit isn't that great, but they just are in too big of a hurry to get the car.
Yeah.
The wealthiest people negotiate everything and they have the money.
Yeah. Yeah. I like to be thought of as generous, but cheap. If you can be generous of spirit, but then also always willing to save, I don't steal money from my friends. I mean, I'm not cheap in
Right.
that way, but I will, go out of my way to save a dollar here and there. And, we were always thinking, we really being cheap about this? No, we're just being, we didn't,
Frugal.
neither my wife or I, my wife was an immigrant child, and she grew up without any money. I grew up with a mom who was a child of the Depression, and that's just ingrained into us. But if you can kind of develop that mindset of don't just buy and throw, it really helps a lot.
Yeah. Yeah. I think we're all capable of doing a little bit more. And I always say a little bit more. We're not going to change lives with this one conversation, but I think if you had the conversation more often, then people would slowly start to see that, oh, this really works. And it does.
And
I
you,
live a lot I live a lot different than most people.
you said you don't like budgets necessarily because people don't follow them, but explain that a little bit about. I know you want to identify some of those big expenses, but how does that interact with the idea of budgeting?
So the reason I don't like it is because budgeting has a negative connotation because of the news. When's the last time you've seen somebody who's not like a business owner or an engine, like the financial mindset person? When's the last time you've seen positive news about doing a budget? Don't worry, you won't find it. You won't find somebody celebrating, throwing a party. We just good. You won't see that. You won't see that. So budgeting has this kind of negative feel because it makes you feel like you have to cut something out of your life. And that negativity goes from looking at the government in terms of how they manage the budget, federal, state, or local. You have told your kids that, well, we're not really good with our money. We don't stick to budgets. So you've heard all this negative stuff over all of your life around budgeting. So now as an adult, you're like, why don't budgeting? You've never seen it in a positive light. That's why. So it's bigger than just doing the activity and looking at your numbers because it's basic math. Expenses, your income minus your expenses, and then there's a number. But even doing that activity causes anxiety for people. David, I sucked at budgeting and I'm a financial planner. And I used to give a budget template and I would say, hey, do this for our meeting. But I was like, I'm not doing it. And so I had to find a budgeting strategy. And that's why I say I'm not a fan of budgets because people don't do them. But you know what people do? They commit to the budgeting strategy that works for them. And there are a ton on the internet. If you type in top 5 budgeting templates or strategies, you can read about all the different types. And then my ask would be try them all. See which one actually works for you. Forget what my industry has been telling you. Do your budget for a month. That's already an issue unless you are a teacher or sometimes like government employees who get paid once a month. Most people get paid in 2-week intervals. And yet we don't have a budget and people do the 2-week budget, the half of the month budget. But why did the normal standard budget be, well, do a budget for a month? That already is one of the biggest reasons as to why people fail at it, because we live our lives in a 2-week window. I get paid on Friday.
It sounds like part of the problem is, and I get what you're saying about not budgeting, but that a lot of people don't really even have a picture of where they are. And they're kind of living in this painful, anxiety ridden thing without even having listed the major expenses, like you say, and then the ones that are not necessarily, but enjoyable, and even feeling like they're in any way in control. Just scary.
It is. And that's why you got to play these mental games. You got to trick yourself into doing it. Literally. I tricked myself into doing it. And then once I got into my flow, it was like, okay, now I know how I need to and I'll say manage my money. You keep using budget, but for the average person, if you can just be aware of your spending, that will help you.
Yeah.
But if you don't have that awareness, you're always going to feel lost when it comes to spending and living your life. So I'm not saying cut out stuff and not have fun. It's just be mindful of where you're spending. And maybe we need to redirect some of those dollars until we get into a position to have more fun, to have more of those great, let's do that after we put in a plan that's going to get you a little bit further, that won't require you to work until you're 95 and you're like, I wish I could retire. Well, you probably could had you saved a few more dollars over the last 30, 40 years.
Yeah, you want to start
had you invested a little bit earlier. Yeah. And so I love speaking to my elders, my uncles, family, and clients who are like, what do you wish you would have done when you were in your 20s? And they always say the same thing, Paul. I should have saved more. I should have invested more. Save, invest, and I should have gotten all of my major insurances when I was young and healthy.
Yeah.
It's the same 3, Paul. I don't care where they're from, what they look like, what their career field. If I talk to somebody over 70 and I'm like, what do you tell somebody, about money in their 20s? It's those 3 things every single time.
Yeah. Yeah. The power of the IRA, the power of compounding over time. It's really shocking. And when you're starting out, it just doesn't feel like any money at all. But the way the stock market has historically worked, even though there's dramatic dips, it's kept on going. One other thing that we talked about too is making hard choices in terms of what your financial picture is. And my heart goes it just aches for all these people who are struggling with multiple jobs. And really, I mean, there's real poverty in this country. And yet there are some people who can make a really hard choice of we live in Oakland and you live in Oakland. I'm in San Francisco, very expensive cities. Well, I don't have to live here. I mean, I love it, But if I were financially in need, I don't have to live here. You talked about you're originally from North Carolina, where it's a lot cheaper. How does that play? I mean, do most people have that kind of flexibility, ability to move? I mean, I know everybody wants to live near their family, and how do you advise about that?
So I'll say everybody's capable of making the decision. The real question is, are you willing to do what it takes?
Mhm.
Because the reality is, if you stay here in the Bay Area, and a lot of my friends who are also transplants like myself many years ago have all moved back to the East Coast
Yeah,
or to the South. It's why people make their money in California, then retire in Arizona, Nevada, Texas, Florida because of taxation. And so there's this game that's being played that some people are willing to do it, and others just aren't willing to make that sacrifice. And it is a sacrifice
yeah,
because if you're from California or an area that's expensive, you kind of like what you because you grew up in this. You grew up in the Bay. You have the water close by, the mountains close by, and a whole lot of fun stuff to do because it's a metropolitan area. But are you really able to like maximize that experience of living in such a culturally rich area? And the answer is for a lot of people is no. There are
yeah,
people who don't cross the bridge. I don't go to San Francisco. I don't go to Oakland. I don't go to San Jose. I don't go to the coast. I don't go to Napa. I don't go to Liverpool. Like they just don't go to certain cities where you're like, my God, we have like the wine capital of the world, right? And I know Napa and people from Livermore kind of argue, but there's a lot of wine. So if you're into wine, it's like, well, it's right in my backyard. And so for some, they want to experience all of that. And so it's going to require you to say to yourself, am I willing to do something to ensure that I can live that lifestyle that I dream about and fantasize about? Or should I pick up and move, maybe hit the reset button? You can always come back. So Paul, there's nothing in stone until you leave this earth. Until you go off to glory, you can make whatever decision you'd like. And so if you need to move temporarily, move, move. I did it. My rent kept going up in my apartment. I said, this is ridiculous. I can afford it, but I'd rather keep a few more dollars in my pocket.
mhm,
So I moved. I rented a room from a friend. She had a 4-bedroom house. Her daughter and I are the same age, but her daughter moved back to the East Coast. And I was like, you wanna adopt a son? And it was a joke, but like I lived with her for a couple of months until I figured out some other things financially. But some people just don't have that ability to swallow that pride and ego and say, look, I can make more money, but that might take a while. You
yeah,
know, I could work 3 jobs, but then I won't have much fun because I'm always working.
yeah,
So the idea is I can earn more money, I can cut expenses, or I do a combination of the 2.
yeah. Well, I think
You decide.
people are always their thing that they have to have is like having a Lexus versus a Toyota. Yeah, you can do that, but then you've got sacrifices in other areas. And I think what you're saying is everybody's got to look a lot more critically at their lifestyle versus their income versus their potential of income, and
Yes.
more intentionally look at those hard choices for the better of their family and their future and their kids'
Yes.
future for the legacy portion. It's one more part of really being an intentional parent and father about taking a hard look at this.
Yeah. I wish I wish we would just do the work and then watch what happens when we do. And I think there's this I see other people doing it, so I'm still not a believer. And that's what stops us from like pursuing something, right? I don't believe it because nobody in my family's done it. You know, I nobody in my circle, like nobody in my circle like really does this. And so if you can step out of your circle, it's probably why all of you are in the kind of the same spot. You're all complaining about the exact same things. That's why you got to get out the circle.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. That complaining thing, I think, it's really a blight kind of on our era. We've gotten more than we've ever had in human history, and we're not grateful enough for what it is we do have, and we're always looking to I don't know. It's human nature to look for the negative, but we got to break out of that mindset and see all the potential. And your advice about seeking out help is so great. I mean, almost every coach I sell what I think of as a discovery session, but it's a $25 unentangling session that I do for like spend an hour. But a lot of coaches will do a half an hour. They'll even do an hour free of coaching, and they'll do that for anybody who calls. And like you're offering your services out of generosity. Most coaches of different types, financial and life coaches, executive coaches, are just in general very generous people who want to help out. They don't necessarily have advice per se, but they want to make you start thinking about the next steps. So take advantage of that.
Yeah, and that's you just said you got to take advantage. If it's free and I can get a little bit of help, I think free is always useful up to a certain extent because
Yes.
you can't. I mean, I'm a business guy, so
Yeah. You're
I'm
not going to
willing to
spend hours
help.
and hours, but
Right, I'm willing to help to a certain degree,
right.
but again, if it's free, you got to go in knowing it's going to be limited right off the
Right.
bat. And because I sign up for all these free things, and I know there's a pitch at the end or at the beginning, or I got to give up an email address, but it's worth it for me to, when I'm ready, to know that, all right, here goes some potential options. I can't, and I've done
Yes.
it for like my speaking business where I was like, man, I know I need a coach. And so I surveyed the world, and I sat in on free webinars. I was like, all right, found the one that's going to work for me. So as people are looking for different, coaching or service, just if you're looking for help, you maybe want to look at two, maybe three who offer exactly what you're looking for. And then you do those three interviews. And if the fit is right, you decide to do it right then.
Mm.
Because if you don't make the decision, life is going to show up somehow and distract you. And so you're like, well, Jasper, I need to really do this
Gotta move.
today. I have a kid. And then I'm like, so when we going to get started? Well, let me think about it. What is there to think about? You've thought about this every day up until today. I need you to get ready now. And if you're not ready now, tell me when, so I will follow up with you when you tell me you're ready. And if that date changes, you want to get started sooner, I'm always ready to start
Yeah.
because I know how I've wasted time and missed out on opportunities because I kept waiting and thinking and getting more information. It's like investing in the stock market. I have watched the stock when it was worth very little. I didn't hit the buy button, and I just watched it go up, and I missed it because I got busy. And by the time I checked, this one stock, my God, it went from like
Yeah.
$20 a share to like $80 a share. And then I saw it at 80, still didn't buy it because now I was mad that I missed
Yeah.
the
Right. Yeah.
growth. And so then I waited some more. Stock went up to like a 120. And I said, had I just made the decision 2 years ago, I would have made a whole lot of money on that one stock. And so time sometimes isn't your friend. It can be the enemy. But we won't know if it's the right time unless you tell me it is. So if it's not the right time, I'm not going to push.
Yeah. Well, this has really been an interesting conversation. I love there's a message of empowerment here. There's a message of taking control of your life and always supporting this idea of being a more intentional father and having a plan, thinking critically about where your life is right now and where you want it to be. So Jasper, I really appreciate you spending some time with us. You can go to see Jasper at let's see, do I have it here still? The buildwealthmovement.com. And I'll put that in the show notes. Any other little bits of wisdom that we didn't cover that you want to get in here before we close?
Yep. So I always try to close out my sessions with this one phrase. I actually have this on one of my t-shirts. It's in my merch store, but work hard until expensive becomes cheap.
Yeah. Good advice. Yeah. Very good.
I'll leave you all with that.
Okay. So Paul Bay at GreatDad.com. You can find more of my coaching services at GreatDad.com/coaching. And then I'm also offering a course on how to find gratitude and the link between gratitude, and well-being and health. And you can find that at GreatDad.com/gratitude. And that's 50% off for podcast listeners with the code. What is the code? Podcast 50. Okay. Until next time. Thanks you so much, Jasper. Take care.
Thanks a lot, Paul.